So good morning to everyone. And yes, with Web3, we are looking at a dawn of a new era of decentralization, a new era of empowerment, a new era of building a more equitable, accessible future for everyone. So yes, morning it is. Good morning, everyone. That's more like it. I am Sonia Ahuja. I'm the founder of Orbis86. We are trying to build accessible Web3 literacy. Accessible is the key word here because there are a lot of people in the globe that aren't able to even get access to basic education because they belong to populations or demographics which prohibit them from being able to pay for the education. That is one of the reasons why all of these events are also free to access. We actually have a lot of high schoolers and undergrad students attending. We want to catch them early so that with them we are able to build a better future. Towards the end, we would really appreciate it if you could scan the code. There is a POAP that you all can collect. And in future events, as you collect more POAPs, you're going to get some cool merchandise. If you saw a digital backpack out there, that is one of the cool merchandise that you can claim. And there's also a survey. It won't take more than 5 minutes of your time, but if you fill out that survey, we would be very grateful. I am extremely grateful to our partners, OnePiece Labs as well as Hedera. So I'm going to ask Dafu to join me here. And he has a few slides to talk about.
Thank you, Sonia. So thank you, guys. Thank you for coming. How are you today? Nice? Good? Perfect. GM. So I'm going to keep it short and quick. So my name is Dafu, D-A-F-U. I'm the partner at onepiecelabs. We are a Web3 incubator founded in Silicon Valley last year with one-stop solutions for all Web3 startups and founders. So we have three arms: incubation, community, and investment. And let's say several numbers here. So starting from last August, we hosted 2 batches. Totally 35 amazing startups joined us, including Sonia, Orbis86. Yeah, 86. Yeah, Sonia did a great job. And we have a upcoming batch with Sei. Jay gonna be here later. So at the end of August, lasting for about 10 weeks, we have a lot of classes and mentors joining us. And also for our community arm, we were actively hosting 8 to 12 events every month. But right now, because of our whole team's bandwidth, we're gonna reduce it to 2 to 4. And this number 93, that is all the events we hosted or co-hosted or partnered with. So including this one. This one is the 93rd one. And right now, currently in our community, there are about 15,000 people. And talking about our investment, so we have invested 42 amazing Web3 startup. Maybe you have heard of some of them, like Alchemy Pay, Sei Labs, Specta, MPC Vault. So those are our portfolios. And we invest in different verticals, 12 verticals, like A, DID, layer 1, basically everything. Can we go to next slide? Okay, thank you. So that's the basic information about onepiecelabs. Here, I want to introduce our new event brand called Pitch Dojo. So actually, this is a Web3 Page Day event series happening on every last Thursday of every month. And each time we're gonna pick 5 to 10 teams to present their idea, to showcase, and we're gonna invite judges from different VCs and the projects to give them feedbacks and potentially invest them, but of course not a 100% guarantee. And each time our champion will win 1,000 cash prize to encourage them to keep building their projects. So if you are interested in this event series, if you want to showcase your idea, your project, or network with VC or Web3 talents, feel free to scan this QR code. And for today, I would say it's a great pleasure to work with Sonia, the Orbis86. Thank you for having us, and Sonia did a great job. So thank you for making this event happen. And also, I'd like to shout out to the sponsor, Hedera. So where are the Hedera team? Oh, there you go. So thank you for sponsoring this event. And of course, so it seems like no people from the house is here, right? So I also want to shout out for the House of Web3. So thank them for contributing to the Web3 ecosystem and community. And this is definitely fancy venue, amazing. And lastly, I'd like to thank all the judges for attending and sharing their insights.
No judges, just speakers.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about this one. Yeah. So thanking all the speakers for sharing their insights and attending, and of course, thank you all for coming and joining us at this event.
Thank you, Daphne.
So yeah, this is the time, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you, thank you. So find me. My name is Dafu from One Piece Lab. Talk to me and talk to anyone on the stage. Enjoy the show and let's fucking go. Okay. Thank you.
We will have time after the event for networking, and we are also going to. You fixed it. Thank you. We are also going to get ourselves some pizza and beer and wine just in a few short minutes. So moving on, a big shout out to Hedera, who has sponsored this event. This is the second time they're sponsoring the event, and instead of talking about Hedera, what I'm going to do is play a short video that talks about the capabilities of Hedera. The one thing that the video doesn't cover is Hedera recently surpassed 14 billion transactions on mainnet. And I actually don't know of any other chains that have done that. So that's a big win. All right, so let's hear it from Hedera.
Hedera is the most used, sustainable public distributed ledger in the world. With use cases from preserving testimony to anchoring warning systems, ensuring the safe storage of vaccines, and allowing us to get back to life as we knew it. Offsetting our carbon footprint while enjoying the new token economy. These are just a few of the game-changing applications built on Hedera, which is governed by the world's leading organizations and fueled by HBAR, the world's greenest cryptocurrency. What future will you build?
Hedera has a huge focus on environmental sustainability. You have the entire team of, not the entire team, but you have folks from San Francisco here, Lena back there, and I don't know your name. Shoshana, Lena back there, and we have Ken from Hashgraph Association. Hashgraph Association is the grants arm of Hedera. So we have quite a few folks here repping Hedera along with other chains. That's why it's a good Web3 event, right? We have so many different chains being represented here. Go and find them during or after the event. All right, so moving on, we have a fantastic panel, 3 fantastic panels. We are going to kick off with Fireside Chat with Jay, who is standing there waiting for me, waiting his turn patiently. So why don't we go ahead and do just that? Jay, would you please come here and join me?
Awesome. Hey, everyone.
It is good courtesy to just say hey back.
GM.
All right, they were tired of my good mornings. That's why this happened. Hey, Anitha, do you mind just hitting start on this one? So we have, thank you. There you go. So that's Jay. He looks much different in the picture, though.
Yeah, it's a little old now.
You actually look older in the picture. I like this look better.
I'll take that, getting younger.
All right, so Jay is the co-founder of Sei Labs. How many of you have heard about Sei? You have to be repping yourself. Yes, me too. Sei Labs recently, per the Messari report, recorded the fastest time to finalizing a transaction, 0.6 seconds. So at the moment, Sei is the fastest chain, you could say so. Let's talk about the origin story of Sei and what the future holds for Sei Labs. Jay, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience and also the folks who are looking at our live stream and talk about your journey here.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks everyone for coming here. Thank you for hosting. OPL, thank you for hosting as well. So a little bit about me, my story. I grew up in the Bay Area. I ended up meeting my co-founder through speech and debate back in high school. So this was over 10 years ago. If any of you did speech and debate, Oh, someone's front and center super excited about that.
No idea.
Yeah, no, so speech and debate was great. Met my co-founder from that. Afterwards, I went off to study computer science, and I ended up getting into crypto back in 2017. So at that time, my roommate, he was going through Binance Launchpad, and we ended up working on a couple of different projects together at the time, right? And after that, I ended up joining Robinhood, the Robinhood, which I'm sure everyone in the audience has heard of in the past couple of years. And I was an engineering lead when the GameStop saga happened back in 2021. So raise your hand if you were following along with the GameStop saga.
If you made money, all the hands went up.
Yeah, a lot of hands going up at that time. So yeah, I mean, I was there on the inside when the GameStop saga was happening, right? And as you can probably imagine, Robinhood did an exceptionally poor job of handling that, because Robinhood was just like, okay, there's all these stocks that customers are making a ton of money off. Let's just restrict their ability to buy. And understandably, the entire country was furious about that. So as an insider at the time, I was leading a team. My team came to me with questions, and I had nothing to be telling them at the time, right? Because leadership kept us completely in the dark. My friends were hitting me up. They were like, yo, what the hell is happening? We're losing money from this. I had nothing to be telling them either. And yeah, I mean, in retrospect, Robinhood did a very poor job of handling that. And it really highlighted how whenever there's essentially just a couple of dudes in a room that are calling the shots, when things are super centralized like that, things can start going very wrong very quickly. And that was the original inspiration for my co-founder and I to start building something like Robinhood, except in a decentralized way. So originally, we were starting to build a DEX. This then led to us looking into every layer 1, every layer 2, and all of the other infrastructure that we could use to build an exchange. That's when we started noticing that exchanges are just not scalable on-chain. And that was the inspiration for what is now Sei. So Sei is a layer 1 blockchain, the fastest blockchain in terms of time to finality out there. And yeah, we've been working on it for a little bit over a year now.
Robinhood saga, I don't think anyone's going to forget that. Well, not the Robinhood saga, but the GameStop saga. And this was the origin story. I mean, you know, what inspired you to actually look at Sei? What I also wanted to ask you was, when we look at Sei Labs differentiates itself by saying, you know, they are the chain to be trading on. So I would love to ask you that what have you done so Sei can differentiate itself from other layer 1 chains that are also optimized for trading? And can you please talk about some unique features of Sei that make it stand out?
Yeah, so internally at Sei Labs, we have just one core thesis, which is that exchanges are the most fundamental use case for crypto, right? The exchange of digital assets is the most important thing that happens on chain right now. Every single asset or every single project right now in crypto, they're all directly or indirectly a trading application. So for example, if you look at Uniswap, OpenSea, I mean, those are both very clearly trading applications because you literally go there and you trade NFTs or fungible tokens. But other things count as trading applications as well. If you look at STEPN is a game, but one of the most fundamental parts of STEPN is their in-game marketplace where you can go and trade. So STEPN is a trading application. Same thing with MetaMask. Even though MetaMask is a wallet, one of the main things you do is you install MetaMask so that you can then go and trade on-chain. So everything in crypto right now is a trading application. The question then becomes, how do you help trading applications grow, right? How do you help them become bigger? And that's what we spend all of our time thinking about. So when we first got started, this was back at the end of 2021 when we were building an exchange. We're like, okay, what kind of infrastructure is out there right now? We saw things like Ethereum, we saw Solana. Gradually over 22, we also started seeing things like Aptos, Sui, and it became clear that there's a few things that are not ideal about any of the other infrastructure that exists right now. One piece of this is just the time to finality. If you have really long time to finality, that severely impacts trading applications, right? So you want to have time to finality that is as close to 0 as possible, as close to that of the Web2 experience as possible. So that's one thing Sei spent a ton of time focused on. We spent a lot of energy, worked with a lot of people, and we're able to get down to, at this point, the Masari report is outdated. In our Atlantic 2 testnet right now, we're seeing less than 450 millisecond time to finality. So it's just really, really, really fast. The second thing we focused on is throughput. So we added in parallelization, and we just improved a lot of the way that state access happens and that execution happens. That helped us get up to 20,000 orders per second that can be processed. And the last thing is we added a native matching engine into the chain itself that helps prevent front running and MEV. So those were a lot of the optimizations we made. And in particular, the low time to finality has been the most impactful on the user experience and also on the market making experience on chain.
Thank you, Jay. I was going to ask you about front running, especially given the fact that we have quantum computing on the edge of a breakout. That being said, you spoke about speed, you spoke about throughput, and can you also talk about the mechanism, the twin turbo consensus mechanism powering these?
Yeah, so one of the most fundamental things that we thought of from the beginning is we want to have single slot finality and have single slot finality while preserving the lowest possible time to finality that's possible. So in general, I mean, if you look at chains like Ethereum, Solana, they have multi-slot finality. So even if you have a super low block time, for example, 600 milliseconds, you need to add multiple blocks onto the chain before it's actually finalized. In the case of Sei, in order for a block to be added to the network, you need to go through consensus between every validator, at least get 2/3 of the voting power of the network before you can add a block to the blockchain. So what we did is we started off with Tendermint consensus because of single slot finality. And then we looked at what is inefficient about it, right? We basically profiled every single part of the, I guess, life cycle of a transaction. And we saw that block propagation is extremely inefficient. And we saw that block processing is also extremely inefficient. So these were two of the things that we decided to really, really focus on. We added in intelligent block propagation. We added in optimistic block processing, and happy to do more of a deep dive around that as well. But from all these changes, we're able to get down to that 450 millisecond time to finality that Sei is able to see right now. So yeah, just a lot of improvements on the core consensus implementation. And we have a lot of new ideas as well for how we can even further improve it in the future.
There is a light paper that you guys can go and take a look at, because currently Sei is the only chain that has the twin turbo consensus mechanism, which is different from a lot of the other consensus mechanisms being used by other DLTs and chains. So go ahead and take a look at it. It's a great light paper, easy to understand, and it also helps you get a grip over what technology is being used. And thank you for updating the time to finality. So 450 milliseconds, that's a 25% increase from 0.6.
In general, if you think about how Web 2 has been progressing, like in Web 2, there's been this insane focus on decreasing the user perceived latency, right? Like every single major kind of company out there, they've just spent a ton of time trying to optimize the user flow so that transactions are like user initiated actions, they have a response time that is as close to 0 as possible. It's kind of bizarre that in Web3, it's, I mean, kind of accepted that it might take multiple seconds or multiple minutes in some cases for transactions to be finalized. That's a really shitty user experience, right? That's not the world that we want to see like 5 years from now. And I think that a lot of the consensus optimizations that Sei has been making will be instrumental in helping bridge that gap between the Web 2 and the Web 3 experience.
Now, Jay, we have spoken a lot about how Sei is purpose-built for exchange applications. How flexible is Sei for developers who want to work on non-exchange related applications?
Yeah. So one of the biggest misconceptions that is out there about Sei right now is that it is a DeFi focused chain, or it only allows exchanges to build on top. That is not true. So every single application out there is either directly or indirectly a trading application. And as a result, Sei is probably the most general purpose chain out there right now. So Sei supports CosmWasm smart contracts, and any CosmWasm smart contract can be permissionlessly deployed to Sei. So if you want to launch an NFT on Sei, you can do that. If you want to launch a game, any kind of social application on Sei, you can do that as well. And at this point, there's over 150 projects that are building on Sei ahead of the mainnet launch. And a lot of them are not just building pure exchanges. Those were some of the initial projects that we were seeing. But now there's a ton of other applications like NFT marketplaces, games, social apps, rollups as well. So a lot of different activity happening there.
How many of you here are building applications in the Web3 space? How many of your applications don't involve any exchange of value? Okay, one. So in general, most of the applications are built around exchanging something, right? That's where the whole trading capabilities. We are talking about exchange of information, exchange of value here. So that helps us understand that, hey, even though we are talking about trading is not just limited to the financial trading of assets. Trading is exchange, and Sei is well optimized for exchange. Obviously, we are at an era where AI is looking at its hockey stick moments. I mean, it has had a lot of hockey stick moments, but here we are looking at another one. So, given the rapidly progressing AI capabilities, how does Sei plan to integrate AI into Sei for trading, its infrastructure?
Yeah. So, I mean, the way that I think about it right now is that there's kind of three levels for the crypto slash AI stack. The highest level is more of the front end level. So this would be things primarily like chatbots, where basically everything happens off chain. There can be a couple of different types of use cases that are becoming pretty prominent for this. One would be to like help developers. So like, let's say I'm building a smart contract on Sei, I could go to a chatbot. I could be like, okay, how do I do X, Y, Z? The chatbot helped me out. Another use case around that, just pure front end facing side, would be I say that I have the intent to do X, Y, and Z. Can you handle it for me? And then through some kind of mechanism in the back end, it's able to, through something like AutoGPT, figure out all the actions that need to be performed and then help perform them for you, right? So that's the pure front end piece of it. Sorry, were you going to say something?
There is also an upcoming Sei hackathon, right?
Oh yeah, so there's going to be a lot of fun stuff happening there as well. But yeah, so that's like the kind of front end facing piece of it. I would say the second part of the stack is more of the hybrid side. So one example of this would be if you want to do decentralized machine learning, but you want to do verification on chain. So let's say that you have some model that is there off chain, input gets passed in, you're able to generate some output, but then you want to verify that that output was correctly, like it went through that model. One example of this would be it went through like GPT-4 instead of going through GPT-2 to save like server costs on whoever is running your input through that model. One way that you can do this is through zero knowledge proofs. So you can use you can basically prove that the input went through this model and it generated this output. And then the actual construction for that would end up looking more like a rollup, right? Because you have this computation happening off chain. You are then able to generate a proof for this computation. And then you have the proof along with whatever the output is and whatever input data needs to be provided. All of that similar to a normal ZK rollup or an optimistic rollup. You'd be able to write all of that on chain on some smart contract or just use it as kind of a pure data availability layer. But there's a lot of different ways that you can construct that. And like, I mean, there's definitely teams that are focused on this right now. So yeah, if like ZK, like if ZK machine learning is important, then I think that one of the primary ways you would be able to do that is by building it on chain.
I want to ask a question. How many of you know what ZK stands for, what optimistic rollups stand for? You want to just quickly touch upon that?
Yeah. So there's layer one blockchains, which would be chains like Ethereum. So these are the core layers that computation would happen on. But what ended up happening with Ethereum is that it's really expensive to submit transactions, right? Like it might cost you $100, $150 in gas fees, and no one wants to pay that much money. So one idea that came up was let's have computation happen off chain. This off chain computation would be a rollup. So I would just submit my transaction to the rollup. The rollup would handle that transaction. And then it just submits something on chain to say that, okay, look, I did this computation off chain. There's two different ways of doing it. With an optimistic rollup, you basically just trust that that rollup did the right thing. And then afterwards, there's a 7-day challenge window where you can say that, oh, look, this rollup actually committed fraud. Then there's zero knowledge rollups, where instead of just trusting someone, in order for the rollup to write anything on chain, they need to generate a zero knowledge proof. So they basically prove that they did this stuff off chain, and then they're able to submit a proof for that on chain. So ZK rollups are better. It's just that they're much more computationally intensive right now. So proof generation is a very expensive process, and it's also pretty tied to GPUs. So it's becoming kind of interesting right now because everyone needs GPUs and a lot of money is going into AI. So now there's competition for these GPUs. And then it's also expensive in terms of verification on chain, especially on Ethereum L1. It might be hundreds or thousands of dollars to actually verify that on chain. But yeah, in terms of like machine learning, the ZK use case I think is really, really interesting because you are able to verify in a decentralized way that some compute happened correctly. And I don't really see a better way of being able to verify that right now.
While we are on the topic of how expensive computation is, I would love to understand what steps Sei is taking to build a more efficient chain. is, say, energy efficient, or is there a pathway to energy efficiency that you guys have on your roadmap?
Yeah, so I guess a couple of different things there. One is just around like why is Ethereum so expensive? It's because Ethereum has this obsessive focus on keeping their full node requirements as low as possible. So you should be able to run an Ethereum full node or an Ethereum node on your laptop or like Raspberry Pi or something. In terms of the design choices that Sei has made, we understand that in order to run really performant infrastructure, you cannot do that on something like a Raspberry Pi. You need to run it on something that is much more substantial in terms of what the machine you're running is. So in Sei's case, we're not making the same kind of full node requirements. And as a result, it's much more feasible to have lower gas fees on an ecosystem like Sei. With regards to energy efficiency, so Bitcoin is notorious for being really inefficient with energy usage. And that's because of their proof of work consensus mechanism, where adding a block to the blockchain requires you to perform a bunch of work. And it's really kind of pointless work that you need to do. But you just prove that you're doing the work, and then people can very easily verify that, right? So proof of work consensus is honestly the issue around why a lot of blockchains are perceived as being energy inefficient. Ethereum recently made the transition from using proof of work to using proof of stake now, and that has helped significantly cut down on energy expenses. In the case of Sei, we were focused on using proof of stake consensus from the get-go, just because it is substantially more performant. And what we're noticing right now is the yearly energy expenses to run the Sei blockchain is equivalent to that of 7 households in the United States, right? So it's incredibly cheap and incredibly unintensive to run just the Sei blockchain overall. And moving forward, we're going to figure out how we can have full nodes and other types of nodes be cheaper in terms of their energy expenses. But just because of this choice of using proof of stake consensus, it has helped just by orders of magnitude compared to Bitcoin.
Amazing. Actually, when Sei launch, we'll have a way for anyone to come and become a validator or node. There are going to be some requisites. However, you need to garner support from the community, but it is permissionless, and people will be able to be a validator as long as they are able to garner the support that is needed. You can ask Jay about all of these things during networking. Jay, you spoke about machine learning, right? Now, decentralized machine learning, especially because of how computation extensive machine learning is, decentralized machine learning is becoming a thing. Is Sei doing anything towards that?
Yeah, so I think that second layer of the stack that I was describing before on like hybrid types of projects, that is one of the biggest things that we're exploring, collaborating with different teams on. Literally over the weekend, I was talking to a professor who is building something like that on Sei right now. So I think that is one of the most interesting use cases for crypto / AI right now that is relatively underexplored. I think that the front end piece of it is like pretty explored at this point, and like it should definitely be built. But I think that that's not going to be as big of a magnitude shift as more of these hybrid solutions can be. I think one level even deeper than that is where you have everything happening on chain. An example of this would be a rollup that is like literally you have some model that rollup has as part of its actual binary. And then any of the input that's passed in is somehow cryptographically private. And then the output that's generated is somehow generated off chain. So I think that would be kind of the most intense way of doing it. And I don't know any projects that are really working on that part of the problem right now. But yeah, from Sei's side, we're going to be having a hackathon pretty soon. And the second part of that stack around like these hybrid types of approaches, I think those are super, super interesting. And we want to work with teams to help facilitate problem solving in that space.
So there is a hackathon that One Labs is doing along with Sei, and it prizes upwards of $200,000 plus a lot of investment opportunities too. So go ahead and catch a hold of Dafu and KJ if you want to learn more. That being said, we are almost at time. I have 2 last questions for you. The first one, which a lot of people might be wondering, is given the current regulatory climate and the landscape, Sei being a layer 1 chain, how do you plan to navigate this regulatory landscape?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So overall, I would say that everything that's been happening with like Coinbase, Binance, in the short term, that is very negative for crypto. Like having more regulatory kind of focus is a bad thing. But what's interesting is that a lot of the regulatory focus is on these centralized entities. And I think long-term, what this is actually going to lead to is greater adoption of on-chain projects and on-chain activity happening, right? Because the core issue right now is that there's these centralized entities that are doing these bad things. In the case of something like FTX, they were just outright committing fraud, and it was really difficult to verify it. So I think there's going to start being actually pretty strong tailwinds to take all this demand for activity that is currently happening in centralized ways, and it'll start happening, or at least a portion of it will start happening on-chain. So interestingly enough, from an adoption standpoint, this is really good for anyone that's building decentralized technology. But yeah, I mean, besides that, as a crypto founder in the US, like it's definitely a little scary. I mean, we're going to be seeing everything that's happening, but overall, like a layer one blockchain is one of the most clear use cases for building a decentralized technology. The Sei Foundation is going to be launching a token from outside of the US. And I think they're, in terms of like the regulatory side of things, a layer one token is one of the safest things to be launching. So yeah, I think long-term it's going to be good, but short-term it is a little scary.
How many of you were cheering for XRP last week? A few folks, okay. I was one of them too. Well, if you haven't been following XRP, go ahead and look at it. I don't think it's over, but it was at least a good milestone judgment. Finally, how many people in the room are builders in Web3? How many of you consider yourself builders or bidlers or builders? Quite a few. So for the builders in the house, say, before we close out, my final question to you is, how can people come and build on Sei? What support is provided by the Sei ecosystem as well as the Sei ecosystem fund in the form of grants, incubation programs, whatever help the builders can get to come and build on Sei?
Yeah, of course. So the biggest focus of Sei as an ecosystem is to help the best possible developers learn how to build on Sei and then start launching interesting projects on top of that. To that effect, there's going to be a bunch of hackathons, hacker houses. We're planning a hack boat as well. So just a lot of different venues for developers to start getting exposed and learning more about Sei. We have a $120 million ecosystem fund, which is money that investor and market makers have committed to deploying on-chain on Sei. So either directly investing into projects or providing liquidity on-chain. So there's a ton of resources, a ton of ways to start growing on Sei. And if you're interested, just feel free to reach out to me. Yeah, just come and say hi after this talk, and happy to chat about that a little bit more.
$120 million up for grabs, guys. So that's a pretty sick amount, right? You know, for attending a free event. Well, I'm not saying that he's going to give it to each and every one of you, but you have to come with a solid proposal. And we already have 150 projects that are building on Sei, so you could be adding your project to that list. That being said, Jay, I really appreciate you taking the time, educating all of us about Sei. And Jay is going to be hanging out. We have another panel coming up. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick 5-minute break before the enterprise panel because the pizza is here. And I don't think people like cold pizza. But please grab the pizza and haul your asses back in here in the next 5 minutes. So see you all in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, we have another amazing panel where we are going to talk about the future of Web3 enterprises. Moderating this panel, we have Linglong, who is a rock star engineer who designed Airbnb's payment systems. And now she is a co-founder and the chief technical officer, the CTO of Blockus, which is a Web3 gaming platform that already has its presence on multiple chains. It's an amazing team, guys, and Linglong is going to be moderating this panel of other fantastic Web3 builders. All right, over to Linglong.
Thank you, Sonia, for the kind words. Hope everyone enjoy your pizza. And so next panel, I'm very excited. It's about Web3 enterprise. And first, I'm curious on how many of you are working in the enterprise, hands-on if you are working in the enterprise or B2B SaaS space. Okay, good amount. That's the next one is all about Web3 enterprise. And I would ask the panelists to introduce themselves in 1 or 2 sentences, and then we can get it started. Cool.
Thank you. Hi. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us, Sonia. Good to see everyone. My name is Tony Rose. Up until 2 weeks ago, I was the head of product at Input Output for Atala Prism, where I was there for 2 years, overseeing the development of next generation decentralized identity infrastructure. Prior to that, one of the things I'm pretty proud of is being in charge of deploying Apple Pay in the US. And that is where I discovered blockchain, seeing how small merchants really got the short end of the stick with, we talked about finality time earlier, taking 3 or 4 days from the time a person pays for something at a merchant to the time that money settles. And so being in charge of Apple Pay at Vantiv 5 or 6 years ago, I went down the blockchain rabbit hole. Quickly discovered L1s had a lot of work to do, as I think we talked about a bit here earlier today, and discovered decentralized identity, self-sovereign identity. I've been really deep down that rabbit hole ever since. And in my view, it's the convergence of identity and payments, L1 blockchains, that really is the magic. And so I hope to talk about some of that today.
How's that? I'm Matt Geddes. I work for VRRB Labs. Been there for 2-3 months now. I've got an accent, so I don't think there's subtitles. I'll try to speak as slowly as I can, but feel free to hit me up afterwards. I have been working in the industry for decades. A lot of the things we're seeing now I've seen happen over and over again in a positive way. Most of my career I've been involved in a lot of infrastructure, storage, networking, and compute background, and sort of trying to bring some of that to the Web3 space, and just really, really excited about some of the things that we're just starting to do now that we'll see over the next sort of 5, 10, 15 years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kaimin. I'm serving as a Chief Business Officer at Bitmart Crypto Exchange. Very happy to be in here, and thank you, Sonia, for organizing this. And mainly, I'm in charge of all the investment incubation, of course, listings on Bitmart as the final liquidity needs, as Jay just previously mentioned about liquidity. We're embracing with a lot of mainnet and ecosystems, and we are very tightly working with them on every stage, from the fundraising, from the incubation, and also, of course, final listing as well. That we're hoping bring our best value add to all those building projects. So if you're a builder, come talk to me afterwards. Very happy to have more discussion. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nishal Beltan. I head up product and crypto operations at a metaverse company called MetaJuice. We have one of the top dApps, at least by unique active wallets on dApp Radar. If you look under the social or gaming category, about 20 million digital assets in a Web2 economy that trade each month. I'm responsible for converting that into Web3. So it's more of a B2C application. But prior to that, I was heading up partner integrations at an NFT company called as Unstoppable Domains. And then prior to that, I worked at a B2B company, Ripple Labs, which builds on the XRP ledger. I was working on bringing a lot of banks, payment service providers to do cross-border payments on crypto rails.
So I know some of our audience, they are Web2 like users, or they are not in the Web3 space yet. And also to know more about all of you, and could you maybe share how did you get into the Web3 space, and what are you passionate about right now?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the question. As I mentioned before, I was in charge of deploying Apple Pay, and just saw how broken the payment systems were, how long it takes money to settle. And so that sort of sent me down the rabbit hole. I discovered decentralized identity, and I've done a lot of experimentation with various L1s. We talked about proof of stake, proof of work, all this stuff. There's a lot of innovation left to be done. I love that you talk about a 5 to 15 year horizon. I think a lot of the time we get way ahead of ourselves in the hype. One thing that I'm really excited about right now is a project we're doing with Student Reader, where we're selling an NFT book that teaches people about decentralized identity, and the funds from that book go to a smart contract. Students, through our partnership in Africa, in Kenya, the Africa Blockchain Center, get decentralized identity credentials and can complete the course and get a scholarship. So it's kind of an end-to-end example of, moving value on an L1 blockchain, but also using decentralized identity credentials and governance frameworks to have that money move in a way that's transparent. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about is the student reader project. Thanks for letting me talk about that.
Very important.
So the 5 to 15 years thing wasn't to say there's not interesting things going on now. I just think that some of the things that we haven't even imagined yet that are coming are pretty exciting. So I started out working open source and sort of infrastructure, like I said. The way I got into Web3 was reading about this Bitcoin thing somewhere back in 2016 or earlier. And immediately it just made sense, not just as a way to sort of transfer sort of payments between entities, but for some of the use cases we're starting to implement and see now and beyond that. Like I said, it just made sense as a way to solve so many problems that I think we've sort of seen in the past. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the things that you guys are going to create and we can use in the future.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so my journey is kind of interesting that before diving into the blockchain space, I was from computer engineering background myself as well. But later on, somehow I was doing P2P fintech, P2P finance, like P2P fintech, like SoFi, SoFi, the kind of thing in Southeast Asia. And back that time, I feel like I would say the previous fintech infrastructure was not that really super friendly for for the liquidity, right? Because everybody needs some sort of centralized account in order to dive into the fintech into the fintech product. But that is really time consuming, and it has a limitation on the liquidity and also has limitation on the compliance side. So after observing several when back in 2016, I realized that the blockchain is definitely something will help and support the liquidity happening, even make the iteration much way faster than the previous so-called Web2 industry. So I dive into that since 2016.
Yeah, I got into crypto back in 2016, 2017. I was working at a B2B company called as Workday. I was leading the financial integration practice. We were helping customers send money offshore. So these are the Airbnbs of the world who had to pay hosts, Amazons, the big companies that wanted to send money offshore. And it was that's when I realized how complicated the financial system is. Every country has a different payment system. You got to know the format. And even for a big corporation, if you're trying to pay a supplier, pay a vendor or whatever, it would take you up to a week depending on where you're sending money. And then you had no idea how much money the recipient would receive. You didn't know what exchange rate you're getting. So that entire bank-to-bank payment system is just so opaque that it's kind of stuck in the dark ages. So I saw crypto as a way to solve that problem. That's when I joined Ripple Labs and led up the technical services team there. As the CEO of Ripple Labs used to say, the fastest way to get money to a different country is you take a bag of, a suitcase full of cash and you get on a plane. So I think crypto can do a lot better. We've heard about, chains that can settle in less than a second. So why can't money move that fast if we have the underlying technology to do that? So that's why I'm passionate about it.
If I could comment, it's funny because I was at City Ventures as a blockchain researcher when Facebook announced the Libra project. And it was fascinating because up until that point in time, I think this was middle of 2017 or 18, I can't remember, yeah. But we were just like two blockchain nerds, me and I forget my colleague's name, writing sort of research papers about DeFi and stuff like that. And when it was announced, at that point in time in the industry, the banks, the central banks had all been like super quiet. Like, Ripple and Stellar were like cross-border payments, remittances, and all us payments nerds were like, this is great, like instant settlement. But we didn't know what the central banks or commercial banks really thought of it, other than they were filing a bunch of patents and stuff. But it was fascinating because they sort of called us nerds, out of the corner and said, hey, like, what is going on here? Like, central banks all over the world were worried that they were going to demonetize their economies. Right? The small economies would like no longer have control over their. It was just such a fascinating thing. And I remember, you can even look up some of the city execs at the time. They're even talking now about, real-time gross settlements as like a thing the commercial banks are now selling to governments and central banks. it's really adversarial, and the ability for individuals to own, hold, and control not only their assets but their data, their identity information. It's existential to many Web 2 adversaries in any industry we look at. So I saw it front and center at Citi. I started the COVID credentials initiative during the pandemic because I thought, well, if I can show my dentist that I have a negative test and it's privately shared, like maybe I don't have to be locked down. Now that got very political, but they view this as a feature. When you look at Sibos, the people talking about Swift and the bankers of the world go to Sibos in London every year. They view the opacity of Swift as a feature of the network, right? So it's really interesting to hear you talk about that.
And at Triple Labs, I worked with a lot of enterprise customers, banks, PSPs, and some of the banks would be surprised when we did some of the first payments, how quickly money would land in their accounts in another country. Because they would just come to expect that you got to wait 3 days or a week or something for the funds to show up, and you would never know when the funds were in transit. But here we pull up a Block Explorer and show, look, the funds are already there. It may take another, depending on which country you were in, depending on the domestic rails there, it could take up to an hour, but it could settle in a few minutes if you had like a real-time payment system in the country. But they would be surprised. Inside banks and financial institutions, they didn't know that money could move that fast.
Thanks for sharing your stories. I feel exactly the same pain. That's why I joined the blockchain space as well. And so as we mentioned that there's fast development in the space, I'm curious on how's your organizations fostering the development depths in the Web3 enterprise space?
Well, I'll speak to my ex-employer, Input Output. So, I think the Cardano ecosystem does a lot of community grants. I mean, I know there's a lot of like tribalism in the L1 communities, and it's unfortunate, really. But because I've been there for 2 years, I've been like deeply involved as the head of product there. They do a lot of really interesting things. The Catalyst program for grant funding. As well, I think looking at who's been contributing to decentralized identity, self-sovereign identity, the DID specifications and standardization, there's not been a whole lot of investment there. And I think IO did a really good job of what they've done with investing in Atala Prism. I think we're going to see Prism V2 being contributed to a pretty big name open source. You guys can probably guess. That's going to be meaningful to builders that want to do things with DIDs, with verifiable credentials, with DIDCOM. You have enterprise class, modern developer friendly ways to do SSI. And I think that's something that, we've contributed. And I think it's gonna be really meaningful again, because it's not just about L1s and transferring value. You need to have, trustless ways to know who it is that are the counterparties that don't rely on centralized, service providers. And that's not really possible because SSI enablers have been, Gen 1 stuff up until now.
Yeah, I totally agree. For all the building organizations building the infrastructure, they have to set it in a permissionless way for people to easily adapt to the ecosystem so that they can build it in a fast and sustainable and user-friendly way, right? So I guess talking about user-friendly, my next question is, as a lot of people right now, like during the bull market, NFT is like very hot, especially last bull market. And curious on how do you envision the role of NFT evolving in the Web3 space, and how does your organizations prepare for it?
I work for VRRB Labs. I've only been there for a couple of months. So I'll speak as best I can to some of the things we're doing, but I definitely share the vision that the rest of the company has, including the founder, Andrew. But we're looking at not just NFTs, but the whole Web3 space and trying to solve a couple of key problems. And I think there's others in this room, absolutely, and outside this room that are trying to solve some of the similar problems in the same way, or maybe a different way. We're obviously sort of trying to help with lower latency, higher throughput, larger scale, those kinds of things. But the other part of this that we're looking at doing, which is what I've been brought on to do, is to make it much, much easier for developer engagement, trying to make it so much easier for people from a traditional Web 2 background to be able to develop code that runs on blockchain or next to blockchain or with blockchain. Being able to not necessarily have to go and learn a whole new suite of tools, technologies, and techniques to be able to write smart contracts, but being able to take the knowledge you have writing code in Python, in TypeScript, in Golang, in C, being able to build proper smart contracts with that and execute that on the blockchain as a way to be able to make it easier for existing Web2 developers with existing applications, whatever they are, to be able to take that application and Web3ify it, or start to Web3ify it. And from there, looking at building general purpose compute to be able to take some of those applications and run the whole application on a Web3 platform, start to finish. And so we're trying to build that sort of foundation. And a lot of this is quite modular and can be used with other sort of technologies, again, with folks in the room. But to try to build this platform that allows anybody out there with developer experience, the millions and millions of developers we have out there, to be able to start to build those applications for NFTs and other unique use cases, to be able to bring the tools and skills that they have to Web3 without necessarily having to go through the pain of learning that stuff.
I just wanted to add to that, as I think we're slowly going to move into the utility phase of NFTs, where there's going to be less focus on just the price speculation. I think just like with crypto, initially there's the hype phase, there's a price speculation, and then you start working on real world use cases. So I've been in NFTs for the last 2.5, 3 years. I was at Unstoppable Domains, where we're trying to solve the problem of you have these long addresses, it's easy to forget, you can put a wrong number digit in there and the funds are gone, right? Your own bank, there's no way to get those back, so why can't you make that easier? And Unstoppable Domains, ENS, they're solving it by minting a domain name as an NFT. So there's a lot of those under the radar projects that we don't know, but those are not as glamorous as buying an Azuki for 10 ETH and watching it go up to 40 and now back to 5 today. But I think a lot of real world utility will be built on that.
Yeah, by the way, they're our clients on the NFT side as well. So basically, the way how we work with NFT is we are very, say, generally speaking, bullish on the social fi and the GameFi, because that's essential needs for no matter Web2 or Web3, audience or the users, right? Because you do need a very solid use case, not just saying trading on DeFi or moving the money, but GameFi, social fi is still the kind of like the essential needs for no matter we call Web2 or Web3, transactional. The user or the crowds. So we have our our own NFT marketplace that we work with a lot of NFT projects, and the NFT over there in our GameFi also DID projects are usually as a representation of a authentication or identity that kind of as a utility. Right. So our NFT marketplace, we list in all those NFTs, and also we provide them extra liquidity on their in game, or say, because social fi is also sort of like a game, right? Because the world is like a game. So like these days, people talk about real world assets. They kind of try to convert the real assets and bridge that with the crypto, also with the digital assets by some chance, right? So we all providing them extra liquidity on, say, the in-game gold, in-game item, or as a crypto exchange. All we are trying to do is to help the projects getting more liquidity and have more penetration to the audience users. So that's our industry, also the enterprise take with the NFT projects.
One of the ones I'm most excited about, and sort of to the Fireside chat earlier, his insight on L1s was it's all about, well, we're ultimately trading things, right? We're ultimately using blockchain to trade an asset, make a payment. I think when you look at NFTs, it's similar, right? And I would say the deeper insight might be that maybe what Web3 is about is property rights in digital, right? Web3, Web2, Web1 it's all digital context. And with Web3, we're saying we want property rights in digital context, like we have them in real life. So what's the difference between this ebook, and an Audible ebook? Well, the technologies, this is using NFT technology, but what's the real difference to a person? Well, this ebook a person owns. They can give it to someone else. They can sell it. Right? I think that's really what it boils down to, is like with Apple Pay, it was a new kind of user ceremony. I tapped my phone instead of pulling out my card. Now we can have new kinds of ceremonies in digital that are like physical ceremonies of ownership. I think that's really, beyond like degenning, and degenning is great. I have a bunch of Dracula Bride books that I degened into. But it's more, enterprise. We're talking about enterprise. So supply chains, like what happens in supply chains? Things move around. People's sense of ownership of a thing moves around. Like, why don't we use NFTs to track that kind of stuff rather than, yeah. So I think that's sort of my thoughts on NFTs is let's get beyond degenning. Let's get beyond prices. Let's see what kind of things can we do that are real. With this book, you buy it, you fund a scholarship that's a smart contract. You give students the ability to get a credential that's a decentralized identity experience. You learn about decentralized identity. With this book, you can actually take the online course. There are really simple things that are very easy to do if we stop thinking about price so much. And I think the technology is maturing to the point now in Web3 with SSI, with L1s, that there's a lot of really cool stuff to do that's really beyond trading. Pep talk over.
Thanks everyone for sharing. Yeah, personally, I'm very excited about NFT adding more utilities and being able to prove the identity instead of just a PFP in the future. And as we talk about the role for like the whole industry evolving very fast, I'm curious on what role do you see the traditional enterprise in the Web3 landscape, and then how can we help them to transition into Web3 more smoothly, and potentially including like onboarding more developers from the Web2 space, etc.
I'll give one example. So it's a transition, right? So most companies built on a Web2 tech, like our economy is built on this data economy. So the foundations of the way that these huge companies work, like, have to change, right? Like if you're running a social network and you only have an advertising model, you can't go to decentralized. Like one of the things that we're working on is in California through the California Blockchain Advocacy Coalition, through the Catalyst funding proposal I mentioned earlier, is a proposal to fund a working group where we bring together not only lobbyists, regulators, KYC providers, DeFi providers, and align the incentives. Because one of the things when you want to move to, let's just say, decentralized finance, we want to make it easier for people to access the innovations of DeFi because they can be offered at a lower cost. Sounds great. Who's disrupted? Well, KYC providers. They're disrupted because today, in today's world, they make $1 every time you onboard for a new service. So they're not your they're not your ally. They're not your they're your adversary. So when you get into conversations where we want to maybe change policy or change law, we have to look at like which ecosystem we're looking at. And whether it's healthcare, I've played around in healthcare, whether it's financial services, supply chains, someone's getting disrupted. And so part of what we've been working on a lot is how do we think about getting stakeholder working groups together. One of the things we're doing in California is a DeFi KYC credential working group. This is an example for how to do that kind of thing.
So I think that enterprise is going to be sort of key in where we move everything forward. This is, again, why we're looking at trying to onboard as many developers as we can to as much Web3 technology as possible. We're going to do that both directly and indirectly. We see now more than we did sort of 10, 20 years ago, more and more enterprises with their own development teams developing their own applications, both internally and sort of productizing externally. That's going to have some direct impact. It's going to scratch an itch that they have or solve a problem that they weren't able to solve before or had to solve in a way that causes data leaks to happen. And we've all been through that. But also sort of more indirectly as well, just again, the needs that they have and the money sort of driving this is really going to drive a lot of this stuff forward. And the more we can do to bring those folks on board and sort of get them used to the climate, I think the better off we'll all be.
Yeah. So transitioning, from say a traditional enterprise to embracing Web3 enterprise, many enterprises actually doing this right now. They either try collaborate with those mainnets like HBAR, Hedera, or Cardano, or even Solana on multiple different angles. Either say like data storage, transaction, or anything financial related, about cross payment, right? Cross border payments. So there are many different use cases that different blockchain are able to enhance or say integrate with the traditional enterprise on their original business line, the benefits or the purpose is definitely to upgrade the service to the next level to the users, right? And I do also see some enterprises, they form their internal blockchain team. For example, Libra, right? And now they now they become Aptos Sui and some other several other projects. But there's but as enterprise to have an internal team to change the entire organization into blockchain, shifting to blockchain, it will be a little bit challenging because when the organization goes bigger, everything we do, or say everything that we're trying to do, has a little bit more challenging and more difficulty. For example, like on compliance-wise, resource-wise, there are many ways that are challenging they will be facing. So I guess at the end of the day, we'll be seeing those enterprises working with the external blockchain or the service, or say blockchain as a service kind of provider, and internally, slowly having the change happening, and with internal, external, on both ways. Then I guess the transitioning will be happening more seamlessly.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the events of the last few weeks. I think you guys might have seen BlackRock has filed for an ETF. So there's a lot of, I think there's another 6 companies, very traditional firms that have filed for ETFs. And I think BlackRock has filed for like 500 ETFs and only one has been rejected or something like that. So we've been hearing this for several years, even last bear market, that the institutional money is coming in, but it finally looks like they're going to get in. And once that money comes in, all the boomers are going to invest in that. It's going to become easy for hedge funds. There's no custodian risk involved. So it's going to bring a lot of money into the space. The other interesting thing that also happened, it was reported last week, I think, is we're no longer in the days of Olympus DAO where you get like 1 million APR or 2 million APR, but a lot of DeFi money is now going into TradFi. It's going the other way around. So I think tokenized treasuries are now at a $600 million market cap, and people are okay settling for a 6% treasury yield. So there's a lot of synergies happening between the TradFi world and crypto. So it's going to bring more money into the space. It's going to get more interest in the space, and once an ETF is approved, it's only a matter of time before someone's going to try to file, for example, an XRP ETF, because XRP, the judge said, was not a security. A token is not a security. So I think there's going to be some interesting things that will happen around that front. And once there's more money into the space, obviously people will want to build more dApps and more type of applications to cater to the audience.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's kind of like a whole system upgrade. You need the regulations, developers, resources, and all the whole system need to invest and educate about to make the Web3 happen. So one last question is, what advice would you give to startup founders or entrepreneurs who want to innovate in this Web3 enterprise space?
Talk to your users.
Very important.
I was going to say the same thing.
I'll put a small comment on that, because our business is basically talking to a lot of projects, right? In my entire Web3 type of career path, I think I see more than 2,000 projects in the past couple of years. The only one thing I will tell the project team is, really to consider for investment is, make sure your use case is essential and useful enough for the society. Because I do see a lot of projects, they have very huge vision, but it's very hard to execute, or it's not the right timing to do such execution. So to do such rolling out the product, right? I don't want to go too detailed, too specific, but just try to make sure that the timing and also the utility and also the essentialness of the product really fits the current market education. If you go too fast, the user won't be able to say fit in, right? Because like in the past bull run, basically all those wallets are being say too complicated, and that's why now coming MPC wallet and AA wallet, in order to upgrade the use case for a better user adoption, user experience, right? So I think that's a very good use case that exactly talk to your user and get the exact use case.
I would say it'd be the same advisor a Web2 entrepreneur would get is try to solve a problem. If you see a problem, try to solve it. It's easy to catch the hype train and want to do the next. I think a couple of weeks back there was like a Fat Azuki or something, 10,000 PFPs, or you want to fork Olympus DAO and offer another billion APR or whatever. But I think the most successful folks are going to be the ones that see a problem and that are trying to solve it.
Okay, cool. That's the last question. And give a round of applause of our panelists. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks to our panelists. Do we have Lucy here? Lucy, can you take a picture of the panelists together? Maybe we could have a quick picture. How are you guys liking the event so far? Nice? Good. Did you like the wine and the beer? Okay, the smiles say it all. All right. So next up, we actually have 3 startups who are going to do a short demo of what they're building. Before we get into the startup segment, I just want to let you all know that Jay, who was up here earlier, he is going to be leaving in about 30 minutes. So if there are any builders who want to talk to Jay about building on Sei, you can find him in the reception area near the front desk. Now, with that being said, we are going to get into our startup demo segment. Coming up first, we have Blocksy. Could I have Josh from Blocksy? All right, so we have Josh walking up here. These are really short 4-minute demos, guys. And after that, we will get into the investment panel. And after that, we have networking.
Hello. Okay, perfect. Yeah, if you could bring up just the website tab for the Connect wallet, and then we'll go into the dashboard. Yep. Hi, I'm Josh. I'm with Blocksy, co-founder of the project, and we're a Web3 CRM that's making it easy for brands and creators to step into the Web3 space, providing their customers with token-gated activations, and also providing the businesses an easier way to capture first-party data. And as we look at a cookieless future, we think that the wallet can really be a nice replacement here in terms of how companies proceed with these kind of consumer outreach and marketing campaigns. So if you look on our site right now, we have actually a Connect wallet button. This is one of the ways that we imagine powering a lot of the brands, is offering a lot of different, very easy to use plugins for websites so that you can keep a lot of the activation on your site and capture that data directly into a CRM very seamlessly and fully automated. So we connect it to this wallet. You'll see that we can load things like a user form to intake some of that data. You just connect to MetaMask. No, just the Connect Wallet button right on the page. Oh, yeah, there you go. So you can see the user fields here. These are all reflected back on the CRM in a user profile that's associated with a wallet address. So it's a really easy way to capture data through call to actions from social media campaigns and things like this. But we also enable things like a chat, where you can have a group chat or one-on-one chat for customer support tickets or community dialogues, or even token-gated chat for activations around like ticketing and stuff like that, as well as a marketplace where you can see assets that were generated in the CRM that are available here. So it gives you a direct ownership of your sales channel for any kind of digital assets. And we'll even be doing this to power events and things like that, where you can overlay QR codes onto creative assets and then have a blockchain-enabled process of being able to capture all of your consumer data without having to rely on inefficient intermediaries like Ticketmaster or Eventbrite and things like that. If we pop over, there was another tab for the dashboard. Sorry, no, there was another tab that was open to actually log in. If you go to the login button up top in the right. Oh. Sorry, if you scroll up and then just go to login. Let's see if we can just load up a project real quick. Sorry. Yeah, just go ahead and hit login. And so all of our projects, unlike traditional CRMs, use the smart contract as a data anchor point. So you can go ahead and start a new project. You can go click into this test project here. This is just a Blocksy test contract that we were using. And what we'll do is we'll take all the on-chain data that's happening with your smart contract and articulate that kind of spider web of information into a more traditional e-commerce funnel. And so here we think we're providing a real BizOps tool that takes the kind of fractionalized and inefficient workflow that many people probably in this room experienced trying to market their projects and consolidate that into a traditional kind of SaaS tool that you'd expect with like a HubSpot or Monday.com, but really for a Web3 purpose. So you can see in these e-commerce funnels, we can have an inactive list of people who've previously held your assets, your holder lists. If you click the tab there next to inactive. Yep. These are people that all have your NFT assets, and we even have filters and toggle switches so you can refine this custom audience for marketing purposes, campaigns, airdrops, all kinds of things like that, and add them to lists. So if you want to go ahead and hit funded wallets, you'll see that this kicks down the list, and now we can just hit that top checkbox. Yep, right there. And then go and add that to a list up in the right. And now we can start saving custom audiences for reactivation campaigns, for promotional campaigns. This could be a contract that you own or an affiliate or even a competitor that you want to be able to get insight onto their customers, right? And so if you could make a test campaign, yep, we can save that. And now if you go to audience up top, you'll see that these lists get saved. And if we click into actually any of the wallet addresses, let's just click that first one right there. You'll see that Blocksy has generated a custom CRM profile around their wallet address, where now you can see all the assets on chain, including ERC20 activity. So we can start to run inference on this to understand that customer from a purchase history standpoint. So we can start to understand their average purchase price, how frequently they're making transactions on chain, and even when they were last active with that wallet, and then use that for targeting campaigns. And through that the website activation that we saw earlier at the beginning of this, that was a point where we could start to capture a lot of this off-chain data as well and pair that with the wallet. So it gives us a really comprehensive view of our customer, especially as cookies, as I mentioned, are getting phased out, where it becomes harder and more expensive to target people on platforms like social media. This gives you a true ownership of your audience on a smart contract and allows you to engage with them directly. So if we go ahead and just select the top checkbox, sorry, on the list of 6. Yep, right there. And then go to airdrop. You'll see that we move to the inventory page, where now we can see assets that are connected to a wallet, either maybe an agency or something like that that's provided creative for you, or you can see ones that were created directly in Blocksy. And these, if you hit that action tab, if you select, select one of the NFTs, please. Yeah, that checkbox at the bottom. Oops. Yep, right there. You'll see the actions tab lets you actually add this to your marketplace. You can mint it directly to the list, and you can also assign it to that list. So this creates a really easy way to token gate digital assets for people to be able to claim things on your site and also just have unique experiences when visiting your site. So now you can have things that are really customized for each audience member. And if you go to the engagement tab real quick, I know we're kind of at time, you'll see how we're able to actually add these activations to your site. So there's no SDK or APIs. It's literally just a JavaScript and HTML that you place onto a landing page, copy and paste. And so you can actually have this kind of Web3 portal and consumer data capture within 10 minutes very easily. And we offer this for free for anyone that wants to use it. We are live right now, and visit us at blocksy.co. Thank you.
The team at Blocksy also organizes a lot of the Crypto Mondays event. I know Eric wasn't able to join us today, but go ahead and take a look at it, because Eric, Josh, these guys have been in the Web3 space for a while now, and they understand customer pain points. And Blocksy was created based off on those pain points. Next up, we have Nischal from MetaJuice, who's going to come up and present. And I'm just going to switch over screens.
All right, cool, awesome. So I just have a slide deck. Okay. Yeah, I have a slide deck, and I'll kind of walk through the slides very quick, but I could do a demo as well at a later date. But I'm responsible for the token vCore. We just launched it last month as an international token offering. I head up product and crypto operations for MetaJuice. So if you can go to the next slide. So we have a Web2 metaverse, which has about 700,000 daily active users, 4 to 5 million monthly active users. We currently have digital goods trading on the marketplace, about 20 million goods or so that trade on the marketplace each month. These are typically digital wearables, digital pets, a lot of Web2 assets. And I was responsible for converting this into like a Web3 economy. So we're in the same genre as like a Sandbox or Decentraland. It's just that we have a way more volume. And we're in the process of converting that economy into Web3. We launched an NFT marketplace last year, done about 100,000 or so NFT assets, just the company itself. We have 200,000 creators on the ecosystem, and we're enabling them to start creating NFTs starting this month. So overall, just we probably converted less than 1% of the economy onto Web3. But if you look up the application, it's already among the top 5 in the social category and the top 25 games or so. And over the next few weeks and months, we'll be converting that as much of that into Web3 as possible. We have about 1 million, 1.5 million, approaching 1.5 million wallets which have the token. A couple of years back, we got a SEC no action letter for one of the tokens that we launched, which was called as WeCoin. It's one of only 3 tokens to have that. And that's more like a stable coin. It's more like a USDC type of token. And we are also on the Times Most Influential Company list as well. This is what the app looks like. We actually have virtual worlds where you can dress up your avatars. A lot of our user base will buy these NFTs. They'll dress up the avatars. They can go into the virtual room. It's a fully built out application. We're among the top 5 apps on iOS as well as on Android on the social category. So you can buy an NFT. You can actually start using it right away. Most of our users, they're buying these NFTs, which are less than $5 for most part. They're pretty cheap. A lot of we're focused on getting as many items converted to NFTs as possible. We want to get eventually by this time next year millions of NFT assets, digital wearables, digital accessories on the platform as possible. Like I said, about 4 million or so monthly active users, 27 million or so transactions a month, about 55 million digital goods on the marketplace. So main reason why we launched this token is we have a very active creator community. We have these hosts who are responsible for setting up these, what we call as rooms. This is akin to an NFT land parcel. And they wanted more of a voice in the future direction of the metaverse. So the main utility of the token was to buy these NFTs, sell them if they wanted to. We pay several $1 million a month as royalties to our creators. We wanted to use the token as a form of payment as well. So if someone wanted to take crypto as a payment method, then we want to be able to pay out our creators in the token. We're also working on providing some other benefits, token-gated rooms, where if you have a certain type of NFT, you can use that to get into a room. We're also part of the Open Metaverse Alliance. So there's about 27, 30 metaverses that are part of the alliance, and we're working on things like interoperability. So if you have an NFT in one metaverse, you bought a jetpack and sandbox, you should be able to bring it into our metaverse. You can take an NFT created in our metaverse into Decentraland or in the future into Yuga Labs ecosystem once their virtual world is out. And you should be able to use it across the board, not just within one metaverse. So those are some of the things that we're working towards. These are just, again, high-level stats, what we're doing, how many users we have monthly. We have $6 to $8 million that are spent on these digital goods, and we are converting that into Web3. Results on DApp Radar, we're among, I think today we were among the top 2 or 3 on Polygon. We're on 3 chains. We're on Immutable X, Ethereum, and Polygon. And as we scale up NFTs, we'll probably be moving on to ZK Sync layer 2, which can make it even more cost-effective, as well as faster for folks to buy NFTs. This is just the high-level graphic around how many just Web 2 assets transact in the economy. 3-month average around 18 million. These are non-NFTs, but if you look at the entire marketplace, OpenSea has about 1.3 NFTs, 1.3 million NFTs that trade in a month. Blur is a lot of traders who are doing, who are farming or who are just trading between their own accounts. So it's about 400K NFTs. So our goal is, even if we convert, 10 or 20% of our ecosystem into NFTs and get our users to buy those NFTs, we could be bigger than most of the rest of the marketplaces combined. And I think that was the last slide. If you have any questions, I'll be around, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Nishchal. Guys, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Blocksy now. So just give me a moment while I switch over the slides. So we already did Blocksy. Let me just go to the next one. Sorry. So we had Nishchal come up next. Okay, I have to adjust the screen. There you go. Could I please have Linglong join us? Linglong is going to present a demo of Blockus. You can grab a mic from there. Just keep going.
The future of Web3 is gaming. The future of gaming is Web3. I'm Linglong, the CTO at Blockus. We are building an all-in-one game platform, and we are part of the A16Z Crypto School. Our mission is seamlessly Web3 gaming. Our goal is to enable the next billion users to benefit from the open financial system when they socialize and connect with their friends and family in the virtual world. Blockus is built by the founders with repeated tech unicorn experience. And I'm Linglong. I used to be a tech lead at Airbnb Payments. I work on the payment system to move the money all over the world, over 192 countries, and over $88 billion every year. And my co-founder, Jess, I met at Airbnb. We used to work on the same team. And then before Blockus, she used to work at Roblox, where she made a longtime friends with game studio owners and understand their pain and struggles. Co-founder Michael, who used to be a product lead at Tagomi, which was acquired by Coinbase. And his specialty is institutional assets custody and compliance. Together, we can build a scalable, secure, and compliant solutions for your games. Today, the Web3 onboarding is broken. Usually it takes over 20 minutes to onboard the new players. And most likely, the low intent user will drop during the process. And our solution is bring a very seamlessly onboarding experience across multiple different services through login, in-game NFT marketplace, and payments, where they can check out with a fiat payment method. So next, let's see a demo. How do I click? Okay, cool. So as you can see, this is a demo built with one of our clients. And this is a game that you can log in with your email and address. And on the backend, it will hook up with a Blockus API and SDK, and a custodial wallet is created for the player. So you log into the game, and then with your email and password, and then on the backend, it will hook up with the Blockus API, and then a custodial wallet is created so that your user doesn't need to know about the seed phrase or any keys. They don't have to manage themselves. And once they get into the game, they want to play the tournament. So they go into the NFT marketplace. Each ticket is an NFT. And they click on purchase. it will redirect them into a fiat checkout page where they can buy the NFT ticket as with their fiat payment method. And then after successful purchase, they can come back to the game and enjoy the game. During the whole process, if I don't tell you, you probably don't even know it's powered by blockchain. So this is what a good blockchain game should be. A good game should be seamlessly so that the user doesn't have to deal with all the difficulties for the technologies. And as we know today, the game publisher, the take rate is very high. And to address this problem, our vision is to build a Blockus ecosystem, which is owned and by the community, players and builders, and can benefit for them. And in the future, Blockus will power the entire game economy activities. And just like how Google powers the internet today. These are all our partners, and as we mentioned that, our vision is to interconnect the ecosystem, open virtual economy in Web3, and we need your help to help us to achieve this. We are hiring, and also we'd love to connect with more game studios who want to build on blockchain. And thank you. I'm Linglong, the CTO at Blockus.
Partner from onepiecelabs, and my partner Dafu is mainly in charge of the community part. I'm more in charge of the investment part, but we're like a team. We work on everything. So if you are like early stage founder, need help, need money, need to grow, just talk to us. You know, we have all kinds of like programs, curriculums, our network to help like early founder to grow, and we usually write the first check. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Anitha Vadavatha. I am affiliated with a few different funds. One of them broadly invests in what we call Web3, but really more specifically focused on data, content, commerce, and community intersection. Means a lot of the sports media entertainment kind of companies comes into our purview. So we look at, the infrastructure layer of the next Web3 and then how they're actually addressing these industries. And we're also a fund of funds where we take positions in emerging tech funds that includes like AI, biotech, robotics, like broadly tech, and also distressed commercial real estate.
Oh, I have one. All right. Hey guys, I'm David. I'm a founder of opcrypto.vc. We're a cross-border crypto native fund based usually out of New York, and we look to help Western founders go to market in Asia. I was previously leading investments and global strategy at Huobi, which is a large crypto exchange based out of China, and previously was an investment banker and venture capitalist at Qiming Venture Partners.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Makishima. I'm the head of product at the Hashgraph Association. We are a foundation in the Hedera ecosystem, specializing in growth for mostly enterprise and B2B initiatives. So we do grant funding, venture investments, as well as like co-development of products. I help head the technical strategy for both products and our enterprise partners, as well as the grant and equity investments.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. A little bit about me. My name is Alejandra. I run community with Near San Francisco. So I'm in charge of a lot of the events that you see in the Near ecosystem. We are actively doing a developer event. So that's our focus right now. And outside of that, I do have a nonprofit called Crypto Babes Club, where we do education for women. So yeah, that's a bit about me. I'd love to hear what we talk. We have a very diverse background here, which I love. But in this investment panel, I'm pretty sure all of you, since you're in the investment side, people come up to you asking you for money. I'm sure that's like a thing. But I think right now we're in a very unique time when it comes to investing. And I read an article, I think last month, that talked about VC funding being at an all-time low. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think is specifically for Web3? Because I think there's a lot of money going into AI, but maybe not so much into Web3. What are your thoughts on that? This is for everybody, by the way.
Okay, I can start first. Before I just give my answer, I want to say, yeah, there's a lot of founders, come to me ask for money, but I more appreciate founder come to me asking for resources. You don't just say, KJ, write me a check, 50K to 500K, whatever, just give me a price. No, actually, I want a founder come to me and say, KJ, so how can you and your community or your business can help my business, help me to grow? I want to be positive cash flow. I want to get connected with this vendor. This is this exchange. So actually that's something I'm looking for. So answering question, right? So right now is the bear market and the valuation is down and not like a lot of like crazy founders, some true believers building stuff. So actually this is the best time to build something. This is the best time to invest in something. So we're the true believers, but not in Paris, like I said, so let's keep building.
That's great. Yeah, definitely. We're all here. There's a reason for it. So I think it is really debatable, that statement, because yes, there has been a significant decline if you were to compare to last year, even year before, particularly in Web3. I think the decline is like almost 85%, means, it's not like the Web3 just evaporated. Those were the investors who are broadly investing in multiple things, and Web3 happened to be that space. When the crypto winter, the FTX collapse, the ripple effect of that actually impacted the whole crypto market. Yes, they have exited, but I think clearly AI, and there's no question. I think there's a reason AI is not just hot, because it's going through a hype cycle. It's a fundamentally transformative technology on many layers. So the disruption that we will begin to see, enterprise, our societal level, our models on the data, like everything is going to be fast-tracked and accelerated. So there is clearly a frenzy, there's no question, and that will continue to get that attention no matter what. But at the same time, having said that, not the whole market is down, I would say, from a VC standpoint. There are some sectors which are really hot, and in fact, we're also beginning to see some IPO action, which is unusual otherwise in late stage. But AI companies are raising, exiting, and there's a huge value proposition how you can also bring that intelligence layer, the reasoning systems that GPT and others are creating. How do you bring that into that native layer of blockchain productization? And then the ones who are going to really build are the real engineers that are going to emerge. So I would say Web3 is not just a developer game anymore. You got to really be an engineer at this point. So
Definitely.
because if you're really engineering a solution for a problem, looking at the whole stack across the board, you will start creating products very uniquely in this juncture. In that sense, yeah, I agree with him. The best builders market right now, and the investors are watching, and they are writing checks. So I wouldn't be like too disheartened, but it has to really measure up.
Right. I mean, for me, I think it's more about quality over quantity. So I think like as builders are thinking about raising in this particular market, I think is really the builders are looking to stay for a long term. So as an early investor ourselves, like we really kind of filter out a lot of sort of what happened in 2022 and really saved our ammunition for what's to be sort of the best time to deploy, which is in the current market right now. So I think a lot of the valuations are much more reasonable. The founders are much more long-term thinking. And a lot of times, this is sort of the place you want to be when you want to be really being very hands-on with some of these entrepreneurs. Just like what Kay just said, it's like a lot more can be done where investors can be a lot more helpful in this time of the year than like previously. So I think this is where investors really need to come together and be really helpful to a lot of some of the upcoming founders that we're seeing, right? Again, like I think AI is not a standalone industry, and neither is crypto, right? I think there's a lot of intersection between crypto and AI itself, and like I think ultimately crypto is gonna be really intertwining with a lot of other industries, and AI being one of them. But also, there's many other industries that are looking to be disrupted as well, and it's really like a founder's game. And I think VCs were there to really give the founders the best resources and tools to make sure that they're on the right path to succeed.
Yeah, I think most of the main points have been answered already, but there's a lot of powder still in the keg for venture investment overall, both from the grant side as well as equity investments. I think we just see the space, at least the investment space, has gotten more knowledgeable over what happened over the last few years. Valuations, as was mentioned, have come back down to earth. People are a little bit more I wouldn't say gilded, but
Humble.
humble about the process. But investors are a little bit more sophisticated now about how they analyze. We've seen what worked economically. We've seen what worked from a product development standpoint. What's worked in like a metaverse versus a token, where the legislation kind of lies in certain jurisdictions around the world. So it's harder to get investments, but I won't say that doesn't mean that the opportunities aren't there. People are still looking to invest in projects that are still good. Foundations are still looking to deploy grants that will grow successful growth in the ecosystem. We're not looking at just transient users or ephemeral usage on networks anymore. We're looking for long-term growth, either from a B2B standpoint or from a daily active, continuous user standpoint in the B2C space.
Yeah, I think right now the space has been very humbling for a lot of founders that are struggling, for VCs too, for everybody in the ecosystem that are losing their jobs. So it's been a very interesting time. This question is mostly for KJ and Anitha. I know it's very clear that current valuation is on the floor right now, but it's also very challenging to define valuation for some of these Web3 projects that are not in the enterprise side, that maybe are more for use surveys or gaming, or for a lot of this niche that I think it's very unique. What do you think are some of the challenges, and how do you or your company addresses this?
Okay, I just go first. That'll be very quick. Before I started OnePiece Labs, I worked for Up Honest Capital, which another Web2 VC in the Valley, for 8 years, investing in early stage Web2, companies. So I've been Web2 investor, Web3 investor, for the last like 8 years. So for the Web2 investments, the valuation, started from pre-seed, seed plus, pre-A, A, B, C, D, all the way. You can raise like multiple rounds, nonstop, right? And for the, like crypto companies, the blockchain companies with crypto, usually just like, say, 3 rounds or 2 rounds, right? Private sale 1, private sale 2, community sale, that's going to be like maybe 0.5% or 2%, whatever. And then it's going to be the ICO. So it's very different. The whole process is not 10 years. The whole process is going to be, say, a year or 2, right? So now it's a bear market, maybe 2.5. That's it. So usually it's still going to less than 2 years, say 1 to 1.5 year. So it's moving very, very fast. So speaking of the valuation, and you're not just like considering the company itself, actually you're gonna consider the power of the token, the power of the community. So combining everything together, people are gonna say, wow, this is crazy. This company only like 2 years old, but valuated at like $500 million. So you're gonna use a different way to think about the Web3 company with the crypto and from the traditional Web2 company.
I mean, the valuations definitely, there's a big adjustment in valuations across the board and all stages. It doesn't matter Web3, Web2, like, across venture. But, venture is a different nature of capital than grant money. And I'm going to start differentiating that. It's very critical is venture is investing and waiting for value creation. So if you're not hitting your value creation metrics, it doesn't matter what your valuation is. Like, it doesn't matter what you start off with. You won't be able to hold that valuation because you're not delivering for those milestones as you go to the next phase of growth. So, in the broader Web3 or the crypto community, this concept of community is, I think, it's a little overrated, because instead of just looking at another community member, if you start thinking about them as users of what value will they create to the ecosystem, and what are the potential protocol layers that would allow them to unlock that value creation, then valuation is a different metric altogether. Because at the end of the day, hey, if I'm going to like this very super early stage of the private sale of a token to like by the time I get to the launch token, what is the growth metrics are you even looking at? So I think kind of bringing back some of that really good old fashioned foundational metrics of how do you really take on a project and what are you really building for? What is that ultimate ecosystem value creation that's providing to their own members of the community or broadly to the ecosystem, whether it's a crypto or the Web3 or whatever native layer you're adding, then valuations becomes a secondary conversation and the investors are aware of that. But generally speaking, no matter what valuation you come up with, there'll be a haircut on that. So like you should be prepared for that. Because again, it's an investor's market and investors do have a plenty of choice with the kind of investments they're going to make it. But I think bringing back that really foundational way of like, hey, what is the problem you're really building for? Are you going to build an ecosystem? What the heck is an ecosystem going to do? Will it have a generative nature of its own growth, whether you're not involved anymore? It continues to grow. It won't grow if there's no generative value creation happening within the community. Means I may start off with a big bang, but it's going to be a whimper and you're going to just disappear from the ecosystem, and then a lot of money and time and effort have been burnt without really adding anything valuable to the broader ecosystem of either the technical stack of the crypto evolution of the technologies, whether whatever layer you're coming from, or to the privacy conversation we're talking about, or like converting some of the Web 2 to like Web 3 as an end user. So scale and growth has to be thought much more seriously, I think, in the Web 3, which is really lacking to a large degree for many of the projects because no one's in charge. That's the problem, right? Which is the beauty of that. Like if you really don't want that, one single point of failure or like centralized way of governing. But the fact is like the quality of your community members matter, the quality of your nodes matter, the activity and the engagement in the community matters. So you got to really think through all of that. And then when you like now sit down with an investor and then talk about valuations, there's a depth of understanding where they may be completely okay with your sort of valuations because there's a belief that's coming from an entirely product technical stack rather than just what you think it is, right?
Yeah. So let's go back to AI, right? Because right now AI is the hot topic that everybody, if they want their startup to be raised, they just throw AI intelligence, AI this, AI that, right? But we also had that for Web3 gaming. We had that for the metaverse. We had that for IoT. And it's probably going to be 5 more names that are going to be thrown around. How do you assess, and this question is mostly for Kent and David, how do you assess, when all of those words are being thrown around, or what's actually good, right? How do you assess what's like a good opportunity versus all hype? Because right now we're going through so much hype.
Well, at least when I look at things from an investment thesis, I only tend to like things that I understand, mostly at the end of the day. And having, been in the space for like the last like 8 years, probably a little bit less than a lot of other people on the panel. We've seen buzzwords thrown out many times in the venture like investment space. When I'm looking from like the grant and the equity investments that we make from the Hashgraph Association, we tend to see past all of the, all the buzzwords. I don't really care about like what technologies. I'll do a deep dive into any of the tech that's relatively used, but fundamentally look at a business for what it is from a business. Does the business model work? Is there a growth projection? Venture investments is a whole different like type of company growth pattern than a company that I would look for like in a rev share investment or look for any other type of backing. It's despite us being from this industry, it's not the type of investment I recommend for people right off the bat. I go venture investments, you need to have a venture scaling business. If you're not in that, go take a loan from a bank. Frankly, there's other ways to raise capital for businesses. Diving through, kind of like the buzzwords, everyone's jumping into AI. There are some good use cases coming out of it. I think from crypto that can be applied to AI is that, we look at a lot of like the infrastructure. I think AI sits on 2 parts of the spectrum. You're either coming in at the infrastructure side and you're helping build up the ecosystem, or you're coming out on the very end tooling end user side. There's a couple companies kind of just going in the middle, which, frankly, I don't think is like the proper ecosystem to be in. But I think, you'll attract some money with buzzwords, but I don't think that's the kind of money that you would want to attract with at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, but I'm sure it's been asked a lot. I think going back to the previous question, I think when you're evaluating projects, no matter of what nature, it's like a combination of 3 different things. It's like ultimately, what is the addressable market, right? How big is this market that they're trying to tackle? What is sort of the benchmark versus like sort of what their competitors are doing, like what are sort of relevant sort of comparables in the market that is doing similar things as them, right? And lastly, it's kind of like the price, right, or the valuation of a certain thing. It's like what the price you're paying for. Does that actually make sense? Or it's like if you go to like a grocery market and you've never really bought groceries before, you see all of these different vegetables, right? Like you don't know sort of prices, and you kind of have to look and maybe try a lot of them before you ultimately make the right purchase, right? So I think with regards to venture investing, is a lot of it is just like taking a deep dive in a particular new subject area, especially important for like early stage investing. It's like you don't have time to be an expert in a particular field because the field always grows faster than you as an investor. I think a lot of it comes down to like the type of entrepreneurs you're able to attract, the type of value add you're able to provide to those entrepreneurs. And sometimes there's like that compounding effect, right? As you sort of become more and more successful as a VC, some of the best projects come to you rather than you going to them, right? And I think a lot of it is just trying to filter out amongst the best people that you come around and being able to really compare them against each other, right? I think as you sort of put yourself in the best position to be around the best people and have those people be able to sort of not only tell you sort of what the space is all about, and like a lot of that is also sort of your self-learning process and being able to take the information that you're given from one particular counterparty or one particular project and compare it to what else is happening in the field, and ultimately making the best decision based on price, you know, TAM, and also like the competition in the space, right? I think that is the same across every single investment vertical, whether it's crypto, whether it's AI, or whether it's any of the other 5 buzzwords that you come across with. So.
May I have a quick comment on the AI side?
Sure, but
Yeah,
only
very
like a
quick.
few minutes.
Yeah. So I think AI is going through a hype cycle, but it's not a hype. I think it's the sooner people embrace that it is fundamentally is going to alter almost a lot of fabrics of systems. I think it's really important not to kind of defeat and fight that. Oh, it's just a hype. It's going to be like what's really happening. What we're witnessing right now is global rapid prototyping using that generative intelligence layer, the core reasoning system. It's not a pre-programmed outcome. It's a reasoning system underneath that we're playing with and then talking to in natural language. And that's really, really significant. To understand means without having to code, I can talk in my English, it'll code for me, right? So that's happening not just in the US and only within the developer community. It is a high schooler is doing it. You know, it is like a grandmother is doing it, an enterprise employee is doing it. So this is fundamental shift. It's a paradigm shift. So it's important to kind of take that into account. Some projects could be hype, but not the shift.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is very clear that there's a lot of really great projects out there. I think it's not always the fit for everybody, but something that I've noticed and a trend that I've seen is that a lot of people that left San Francisco are saying, you know, I'm leaving because there's, you know, more money. And it always looks like the grass is greener on the other side, right? It always looks that way. A lot of people right now are talking about Dubai. They're talking about Singapore, and they're going there and they still don't raise money, right? But it's sometimes not always about the investment part. But the other reason why people are leaving is regulations, right? And the US is a very unique space to be in. I would say it's very protected. But it can be tough for investors to actually invest while staying by the rules. How do you assess risk? And again, like, no financial advice. Feel free to talk as yourself, not as the company. But if anybody has thoughts on that, I know everybody wants to know it. So, and I haven't seen a lot of panels talk about what just happened with XRP, which I think has been a really big win for the ecosystem as a whole, but it's also tricky, especially with AI, where there's a lot of gray areas when it comes to legality, what's allowed, and deep fakes. And it can be scary, but also very, groundbreaking. So, yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And this is for everybody, by the way.
I can get started on this. I think risk reward is a different mechanism. I think right now it is not just a risk, it's about the legality, right? I mean, you know, there's always going to be legality or risk regardless with any technology, but crypto is a very muddled in the US, at least at this point. Yes, the XRP win is definitely a positive, and we've seen the markets respond short term immediately. Like Ethereum has gone up, Bitcoin, like, you know, quite a bit of that has actually gone up, but it's come down again. So it's the fact is it's not a security. That can be a great argument that others can use now if they need to with the SEC. So I think it's a huge win for temporarily the crypto market. I think it's a loss for SEC, but they're going to regroup and probably think through this case and then come back. I think that's going to happen. So I think for me, like going to Dubai, going to Singapore, like, you know, we are definitely losing some of the great talent from the US to other jurisdictions, but hey, why do I have to spend $250,000 incorporating my entity in crypto in Singapore when I can do that for $10K in Delaware? That's what we were hoping to happen, right? It's like, hey, my market is here, my consumers here, what I'm solving for is here. Why do I have to operate from Singapore and deal with 2 different regulatory environments and uproot my entire life? It's really not a great value proposition. So everyone's watching for it, but I'm a huge believer of regulation, because regulation just exponentially increases the industry landscape. Means it may take some time, but I think I'm being very optimistic that it's going to eventually settle down, where I think it's going to come back and we're going to do. On the AI side, of course, the whole world is trying to battle with that. In fact, some of the best regulatory kind of like guidance, I would say, that's large documents. China has actually put together some really remarkable in recent times on how they're defined and how they're going to treat it, how they're going to treat it for enterprise layer, how they're going to treat it for individual user layer. So I think, let's not only just look at the US, let's look at the whole world on how each of this country. The beauty of AI right now is every country will apply AI in
Anitha,
the way they say.
we're almost at time. I love how passionate she is, but we gotta keep it going. I know you guys want to go get some more drinks. I do.
Yeah, I think the simple short answer to this is that like it's very hard to govern the protocol itself, but it's like the governance of the person that's operating or has created the protocol, right? So I think the risk ultimately falls amongst the individual that's utilizing crypto technology or the creator of the technology itself, but like the protocol kind of runs on its own, right? Like I think that part of it is gonna be very, very difficult to govern, and that's why it's such like once it permeates through an ecosystem, it like spreads like wildfire, right? But I think the government and different governing bodies is attempting to really protect its citizens to really be able to operate this technology or utilize or buy into this technology without proper foresight or without proper research into it, right? And I think ultimately it's really about protecting the retail and making sure that these people are educated enough to be making the right, whether it's investment decision or the right sort of decisions for operations.
Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, so I think just to speak on the topic of kind of choosing which geographic jurisdictions you want to operate in, I think there's a lot of opportunities. We're familiar with the more crypto-friendly ones, Singapore, Cayman Islands, and Switzerland. So the Hashgraph Association is actually based out of Switzerland. So we have our own frameworks around security tokens that have already been in place by the Swiss government and the financial services there. So even if you're pursuing a place that's a little bit more free, I would say, like in crypto, it's not always to your advantage at the end of the day. If you're still going to interact, especially with enterprise, they're not going to trust a company that's it's a little bit more suspicious to work with a company that's out of the Cayman Islands that's dealing with financial services than one that's based out of Switzerland or one that's gotten some sort of guidance from the United States government. So you need to consider not only who your customers are at the end of the day when you choose these jurisdictions, the investors look at it too, because there's a risk on our side investing in companies that in this sort of like gray area, but also as a founder themselves, as a founder that's built crypto companies, especially being an American, there is a risk of going to these a little bit more free domains, because at the end of the day, if you're on a team and everyone else is not a U.S. citizen and the SEC comes for you, they're going to come for the American first. So that's just some tips to be considerate of. But just because something's a little bit more free for crypto, I think the world's going to follow where the U.S. falls in terms of regulation. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the legal frameworks that you're working with.
I'm gonna do it very quick. So 2 hours ago, Jay was sitting there and said, everything is about trading, right? All the apps is about trading. I believe that, but I want to put it the other way. Say we have two parties: the Web3 believers, us, and the government, and both parties really care about trading or liquidity. That's very important. As a Web3 investor, Web3 believer, I need more liquidity. I need endowment fund, right? A lot of like big family office trust, the Web3 and put money in there, right? So we need regulation. On the other side, the government, they need liquidity. And do they need crypto? And there's one fact. The top 10 T-bill holders, one of them is Tether. And Tether is an unregulated company. And the government will think we need more liquidity for a T-bill and notes, right? And how can we make more companies, Web3 companies, regulated and purchase our T-bill? And right now, actually, we throw the ball back to the government, and the government is thinking they need to do the first move. So I'm very positive on this like regulation thing, and I believe in the near future, totally, definitely before the bull run, we're going to see very specific and good regulation, clear regulation on both stablecoins and RWA. So that's my belief. Yeah.
Awesome. We do have 2 more minutes. We can take one question. Oh, there's a lot of questions. Okay. You choose, Kent.
Thank you. It's been a beautiful panel. And my question would be actually in a line of what is a big, great future of Web3? Because it's been a major topic for many years at this point, but it seems like we haven't really seen like practical use cases. And I come at this question as probably a true believer of Web3, but I still can't really find a really practical use cases that actually stuck. What is your vision of this? Thank you.
Okay. My answer, if you asked me like half a year ago, I was thinking Web3 games or GameFi, whatever, SocialFi. But today you ask a question, I would say RWA, right? And is really getting really close to get regulated and is, associated with the stable coin. We all need stable coin. I mean, believers, we all need the stable coin. And also is something about the mass adoption. There's a real use case. So I think RWA is the answer. I just make it very quick.
Yeah, I would definitely agree because we're actually investing in a company. We're a lead investor, a company called Mogul, which is really building a fintech investment platform that's allowing to including retail investors only in the US. They're taking a regulation first compliance approach in the US first, no any other arbitrage on jurisdiction where they want the value of the asset class of real estate, which is highly illiquid, highly regulated, to be accessible to the broader citizens. And they're really onto something really significant. They have the right people doing it. So I think real world assetization is going to become more and more real because that's easy for even regulators to use it as a use case and then govern. So I'm definitely bullish on that side myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think the simplest thing is like sending money should be as easy as sending a text or email, and like we're very much able to do that today to pretty much anyone in the world as long as they have internet. So I think obviously there are processes in between where it can be improved, but like at least from point A to point B, like instantaneously you can send not only sort of crypto, but eventually like any type of value, and ownership can then be transferred in any sort of one person to another individual like instantaneously, right? And that's sort of the whole nature of crypto and the blockchain infrastructure.
Thank you.
If anybody has questions, we are going to be here. You can find us here or at the drink booth. Find us and talk to us. Any ending remarks that you guys want to say?
No, I think if you're a builder, just
come talk to us.
Build. Investors will find you if you're doing something remarkable.
Yeah, solve a problem.
Yeah, solve a problem.
Thank you so much, everybody.